It's been a little while since I've done one of these live streams. Getting a bit nervous. It's really crazy. Today, I am going to be doing an edit. There's been a few tracks that I've had like kind of hanging around thinking, you know, just in tabs on my phone of different tracks that I'm thinking about re-editing for my set. But the majority of you wanted me to remix and edit Masters at Work to Be in Love. The original track is one of my favorite house tracks of all time. It's just an amazing track, and I always used to love playing it when it came out. I think it was mid-90s, I think, perhaps. I could be wrong. So the first thing I usually do when I'm doing an edit is collect as many different versions or as many different remixes and different things of the original track as I can do. So by this, I mean like different, so obviously the original mix. Sometimes I'll try and get remixes of the original track as well, and maybe an a cappella if I can get it as well. The reason I get as many different mixes as possible, because in some mixes of a track, you might have elements that you wouldn't get in the others. So say, for example, one track might be a bit more acoustic, might have a few less drums, maybe might have a nice kind of breakdown moment, in which case it might have a bit that you can kind of cut out of that bit rather than having it in the original. So for this one, I've got the original mix. Well, actually, no, I've got the straight from MAW studio mix, which is, I believe is the first version that they did. And then there was the 99 mix, which is what most people played. I then got the a cappella as well, which was also kind of it was on the original vinyl. It was also on original digital releases, and I think on some of the defected a cappella compilations. So I do have the a cappella here, and I've also got this piano-pella as well, which is something I don't think I'd actually seen before, but it's kind of this, it is literally just a piano version of the track. It's really, really nice. And I think that actually comes from the original version, which if you've only heard the 99 mix, which is what most club mixes are, it's got a really beautiful bit towards the end of the track where it kind of goes a bit more improvised, maybe, I think. That's part of the original kind of mix, and the fact that it kind of breaks down for a good like minute or minute and a half is just amazing. It's got some amazing parts in it. So that's the reason I've kind of collected all those different pieces together. One of the things I know from the a cappella is that it doesn't have all that nice improvised stuff. So I'm actually going to get that improvised kind of a cappella, the improvised vocals out of that original version. I'm actually going to use this service that I use quite a lot, which is it's LaLaL.ai. I always pronounce it wrong, but this is an amazing site. I absolutely love it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this original edit, I'm going to drag and drop it into here, and what it's going to do is it's going to separate the vocals from the instrumental. This might take a while. This is taking a bit longer. Maybe a lot of people are using it today. I'll come back to this in a minute. So I'm going to start loading some of these tracks into here. I got my standard template within Ableton. It just helps me get going really quickly. It's actually separated into 5 different groups. Well, actually 6 different groups if you include a MIDI one at the top here. So I've got a MIDI group at the top here, which has a few of my kind of MIDI generating kind of stuff, scalar, riffer, and chord jam in there. I've then got my drums group, my bass group, my music group, my vocals group, and my effects group. I'm going to drag and drop some of these tracks in. I'm going to do the original studio version. I think they're all the same BPM actually. I think it's 122 BPM. I always have warping turned off actually by default. I used to have it always turned on, but with the amount of remixes and collaborations that I end up doing, I'm always importing stems. When you're importing like vocals and instruments and stuff, the warping doesn't always get it right. Unless it's got beats there, it doesn't usually get it right. So that's why I always have warping turned off. But I'm going to warp this track just to kind of get the tempo of it. In this stream, I'm going to do stuff really quickly because this is just how I work. But if you want to know all of my techniques and how I kind of edit stuff and you want to learn how to do it yourself, then in the description of this video there is a link to my course, which I've done a full video course on how to make edits. And even if you haven't used Ableton before or any music producing software before, I go right from scratch, so it's, you know, it's dead easy to kind of follow along. There's been thousands of students that have taken it so far, and they're producing some amazing tracks now out of it. So yeah, 121.90. So I'm going to call it 122 BPM. So yeah, generally what I end up doing is just is pulling everything in first of all and kind of decide what I'm going to take from each version. I'm going to get the acapella in as well. Acapellas are notoriously difficult to beat match, to warp, especially if they haven't got a rhythm to them. So by using the original track, I'm hoping I can just line it up with that and it'll be all right.
To be in love. To be in love. To be in love. To be in love. I'm in love. I'm in love. To be in love. I'm in love. I'm in love. To be in love. I'm in love. I'm in love.
There we go. That's just a quick and easy way of doing it. I usually have like the instrumental there, or so I can kind of get it in time. I've obviously set the tempo of the project to the same as the original mix. So now, even though this is unwarped, it's in time. I can just click warp and that now puts it in time. And I can start now, getting a different tempo. In fact, I'll keep it at that 122 because I want to do the piano appella as well. This one might be a bit difficult because I'm not quite sure whether this piano is actually an acoustic version. I wonder if this is this piece here. I bet it is. Yeah, that's it. That's the original bit then, isn't it? Yeah.
See, when I was down and out, I had nobody by my side. You came to my rescue.
So there you go. Yeah, just by using both versions, I can find how to get it in time. So I know that's in time. I say I don't think I'm going to need anything out of this original version, but I am going to get this a cappella. Hopefully, yeah, it's finished doing it here.
To be in love, I'm in love. To be in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. To be in love with you.
So this site has now separated the vocal from that instrumental. So I've got both the vocal and the instrumental.
I'm in love. To be in love.
Obviously, it's not perfect, but considering it's doing it from an original mix from 95, 96. But that's just a preview. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to process the whole file. This might take a little bit of a while because it's going to now put it in a queue and it's going to process it and then give me the full WAV version of vocal and the instrumental. When you're kind of doing these edits, you want to get the highest quality version of the track as well. I always get the WAV version of it. All of these tracks were purchased from either Beatport, Tracksource, or one of the download sites, and you can download it in WAV format from there. And when you're doing your edits, especially if you're going to speed up or slow down, the artifacts that are in MP3s can really kind of affect when you're doing this kind of stuff, and especially when you're using sites like LaLaL.ai. Yeah, especially when you're using sites like this, you want to use the highest quality stuff going in so you can get the highest quality coming out. That's going to take its time. In fact, that'll email me when it's all done. So I'll come back to that a bit later. So with this now, I now have this kind of piano appella ready to go. I've got the acapella. So I'm going to put the acapella into the vocals group here. So really what I would do at this stage is try and get all the different bits from those tracks that I want to come up with an idea with. Really, I don't necessarily want to use the full vocal in this edit, because obviously if you want to play the full vocal, you just play the original mix. And I think I want to do a kind of dubbier kind of thing. I've just had a notification through on my phone, on my watch, sorry, saying that it's finished processing. So I'm going to download that vocal and the instrumental. While I'm here, actually, I will say it's also brilliant for separating other stuff out. So say, for example, you could do drums. You could separate out the drums. And what that does is it gives you a drum version of the track and a version of the track without drums. Now that is really handy. In fact, let's do that. I might actually just do the drums one because I might want the instrumental bit. So that's the no vocals, otherwise known as the instrumental. And then the vocal split. Let's hear how the vocal split actually is. See, what I want is this breakdown vocal here. This is what I really want.
I had nobody by my side, and with this lovely remix, we'll talk about love, talking about love.
See, I wanted to use that bit. That bit is really cool. And with this remix.
And with this lovely remix.
So we're going to use that bit. I definitely want to use that bit. I think that might be a cheeky little bit to go in the start there, really, maybe. Actually, yes, I'm going to go through no vocals and see if there's anything in here. I usually kind of look through like the waveform to see if there's anything kind of like without any beats, like this bit here. I do want a bit of that kind of original, what is it? It's like a electronic piano of some sort. We got the other bits that have downloaded. Let me get them out of my downloads folder. So this is split. This should include everything but the drums. I'm trying to wonder whether I can actually use that. You can hear artifacts in the background there. Once it's kind of mixed in with my own drums, it might work. It might be okay. If I was really talented, which I'm not, I would replay that. But yeah, I can't see myself being able to do that. I'm definitely not even going to try on this live stream because I'll just be here for ages. So I'm going to try and clip that out. I want to use a bit of that keyboard. I just want that little loop there. That's all I want out of this whole track. Loop that up. It's actually got the kind of like a vinyl sound in the background, which actually it gives it a little bit more texture. Just scooping a bit of that bottom end out there. As I say, I probably put a bit of soothe on there as well. I love soothe, just gets rid of some of those resonant frequencies that are a bit annoying. When you're using sites like that LaLaL, loads of artifacts in there, and they tend to give some resonant frequencies around about the mid-range. I think it's just like a phasing thing, but yeah, you can easily just get rid of them, or at least reduce them with soothe. And in fact, one trick that I usually use for softening things off like that is putting just a bit of reverb on it, using the dry and the wet, taking away a bit of that dry and putting a bit of wet in, just kind of smooths it over almost. There you go. So I've got that nice little kind of organy, clavy kind of line going on there. So those are the bits that I think I'm going to use. So that is going to be the breakdown. I've got this feeling that's going to be the breakdown. So I'm going to move that to about 1 minute into the track. And what I'm going to do is I want to find a loop in that vocal. And I think I already know the loop that I want to do with the vocal. I want to do the 2B, the 2B, 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 because I think that's in one of the versions. I can't remember which version it is.
2B, 2B.
Yeah, I kind of want to just loop this vocal up here. Not sure how.
2B in, 2B in, 2B in, 2B in.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of loop that I want to do.
2B in, 2B in, 2B in, 2B in.
I'm just gradually moving that starting point until I get that kind of the loop sitting right. It's kind of like when you're a DJ and you're kind of getting tracks to kind of sit in time. You're kind of slowing it down or speeding it up. And that's generally what I'm doing with this kind of start point of this loop. I want to make sure that I'm getting it kind of in the right thing. So for my beats, I use XO. I love XO. So this is kind of, this is how I kind of find all my beats. XO kind of works as a drum sequencer, but mainly I use it for finding the drum sounds. It's brilliant. I have a template set up in here, which is a basic house structure. All of the different channels down here are different channels of drums. So I've got my kick here. If I just solo the XO. So I've got my kick there programmed in there. If I click on this little icon here, this shows me all of the samples on my hard drive. Each one of these little dots is a sample on my hard drive. They're all different. They're colored up differently to kind of show you different instruments. So all the red ones are kicks, all the blue ones are snares. These are hi-hats over this side. You kind of get used to it after a while. And what I can do is I can even like narrow it down. So I've got 3 different folders here. I generally don't use the content that comes with XO, just generally because it doesn't really fit with what I've got. I've got a samples folder, which is the samples that I've been collecting for the last 20 years or so. And then I've also got my splice folder in here as well. I can narrow it down by kick. So so I can just show kick samples. But the coolest thing is I can also filter it out as well. If I want a shorter kick, then I can actually just filter it by the length of the kick that I want. But the best thing is, so you find a drum sample that you like. So for example, is this one. And then I can press left and right on my keyboard, which is this kind of timeline down here, and I can move to sounds that are similar to it. It's great for kind of jumping between your kick sounds and actually kind of finding something that works for you. I tend to look kind of for an area of sounds that I like, so a kind of one sample that I like and then move from there. Nice deep kind of kick there. And then I can introduce a hat, for example. So I've got this open hat here and I can jump in and start tweaking this one as well. So I can find a hat I want, but I can also gonna trim it up as well. So I tend to use the decay on here as well. And you've also kind of got a cut here as well. So you've got a high pass and a low pass filter on here as well. So you can kind of cut some of the bottom end out. And there's a tone here as well, which is kind of like a tilt EQ. Let's hear what it sounds like with the vocal. I'm actually just doing the drums rough at the moment. What I will do is I'll probably come back to these and tweak these once I start getting other instrumental bits in there. I want to get a kind of groove going on. I'll do this quite quickly and then get a bit of bass in there and probably end up coming back and tweaking like the kick and stuff and maybe replacing it out. But I just want to get something in there for now, just get a kind of vibe. I'm going to get some processing on that vocal. I am going to put LFO on it. Actually, no, I might put a duck on it. I've started using duck. I've used LFO tool for years, but I've just started using duck and I really like it by Devious Machines. One of the reasons I've started using this is because you can set a sidechain on this to be triggered by your kick, which I really love. So for example, at the moment, my kick's on the XO channel, and let me just solo out that kick. I'll put a kick on its own channel in a bit, but like just so you can see, I'll sidechain from that kick. So the sidechain is going into duck, and I can put it on sidechain mode, and it will every time the kick hits, it will trigger this envelope. But the coolest thing about this that I absolutely love, which I haven't seen in any of these sidechain plugins, is you can actually put it to show the sidechain on the graph, which shows you the kick in here. So you can actually precisely map this. So that's now the kick in here. So I can actually make sure that this is only ducking where the kick hits. As I say, I haven't seen any other kind of sidechain tool do that yet. Just be able to see that kick in relation to everything else you're doing. I've used LFO tool for ages, and I know there's Shaperbox and there's Nicky Romero has got one as well. I think there's loads of different ones out there, but for my money, this works really well. And I think it's only like £20 or something. It's really kind of cool. But that kind of won me over, and I've started using that a bit more recently. I'm gonna put auto filter on here as well. Sorry, I tend to use the find quite a lot within the browser. So like Command and F brings up your search. And you can search for anything. So you can search for a plugin, you can search for a sample, anything else like that. So I'm looking for an auto filter. I just type in auto, press down on my keyboard and enter. That puts an auto filter in there. Yeah, just kind of, I mean, I'll probably draw that automation in when it comes to the actual doing it, but I just want to get that feel for what I'm doing here. I was trying to think of what I was going to do with this. I actually kind of want to take just a part of that bass line that's in the original. Actually, that's not going to work. That doesn't sound great. No, it's that top line, not the bass, but that top line. Just got to figure out what that is. Actually, let me find out I'm going to find out what key this track is in. And actually, I use Mixed in Key Live. I love this bit of software. I've used Mixed in Key for years, but like just having this software on your desktop is great because I can just take like the original version, for example, drag and drop it into there. F minor. Let me try the 99 mix as well. I just want to make sure that's also the same. This is a really good bit of software actually, because it will listen to anything being played on your computer and it will tell you. It's just rough for now. I tend to have an operator going. So this is my bass channel. I just have an operator going here just so I can get an idea of what I'm doing. So let's get something on the bass. I'm going to use the sub. I might go for a sub, see if I can get that in there. The sub is an instrument that I'm using a lot. Well, I've been using it a lot for a while. I think mainly because it's just a really simple thing. It's just a whole load of presets. And I tend to use, you know, a few in here that I know that work really well. I don't think that'll work for this case. Let's try. I think I want a subbier kind of bass than that. I might go for a sine wave. One of the great things about Duck as well, which is in a lot of kind of the sidechainy kind of Duckers plugins, they got the crossover here, so you can you can make it duck just the low end and like leave the high end so it doesn't duck as much. So you got a duck amount for the low end and a duck amount for the high end. And then you got the crossover here. So this is where it kind of, anything below this number goes into low, anything above it goes into high. That kick is just not right at the moment. See, this is what I mean. That's why I always have this. I'm kind of go through my kicks. I'll tweak the kicks in a bit. Might go for a 909 maybe. Maybe there's a 909 I can use. This is the thing. I'll go between like the kick and the bass and just kind of try and find something that kind of works, that's sitting between the two. Might try and keep this quite light actually. Let's try changing the hat out as well. The hat's a bit strong, isn't it? That kind of works nicely. I want something kind of light. I'm going to get some drum loops in there as well. I tend to work better with drum loops. Tend to find bits that I want in them. That's actually really nice, that one. It's just really light in the mix. Yeah, I'm just going to get that in there. I love working with loops. I'm much more of a fan of working with loops. Just generally because I can kind of hear what I want. I know when I'm going through individual sounds and you're trying to build up a drum kind of pattern, it can take me a lot longer by going through all individual one shots than I would do going through loops. I can listen to a loop and think, I'd like that hat out of that, or I like that clap out of that, and I'll cut it out of that loop. It's one of those things I kind of just, I hear it better when I'm hearing loop. That one works quite nicely. I don't know if I'm going to use it, but I might just keep that one in there for now. Actually, stuff it. I'm gonna leave that for now. I'd like this loop here. This loop here works really nicely. This one works really nicely. Well, I'm going to do this. It's a bit too strong. It's got a bit too much low end presence, and I want to make it I want to make it shorter, and I want to make it lighter as well. The first thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to get a transient shaper on there. I tend to use transient master just generally because I got it within the complete Native Instruments complete. How good it is in relation to other transient shapers, I don't know. It's the only one I usually use. I probably have like another 2 or 3, but God knows where they are. It gives it that kind of real shortness. In fact, sometimes I like duplicating this, so I have 2 of them on there. Yeah, that works quite nicely. Also, I'm going to put a bit of split EQ on there as well. Split EQ, I absolutely love. Of all the plugins that I've bought recently, and I say recently, like within the last year, this plugin is one of the ones that is just absolute magic. It's an EQ, but it actually can EQ transients separate to tonal. And by that, the general reason I use it is to kind of take away some of the heaviness in stuff. I want, like, for example, with these hats, they're a bit too strong, a bit too weighty. There's too much weight within them. I want just that top end. And usually if you kind of just EQ that top end, you're losing a lot of that kind of presence. I'll show you what I mean. You're missing some of that shh, shh, shh. And what I want to do is I want to take away some of the heaviness in that shh. And what I basically can do is I can take away the tonal. So the tonal is that kind of weight. The transients, as you might have known, is the kind of the clickiness. I can either take one of these parameters. So rather than moving it all up and down like this, I can actually drag down the tonal. So you can see the blue here is tonal and the green is transients. And what I tend to do for hi-hats like this, I'll either drag down the tonal of like one of these kind of bell curves, or I can actually take down the whole tonal of the whole EQ. And in fact, let me put this on hats, drums, cymbal. Just taking away some of the weight there. See how that sounds with everything else. In fact, I want to see if I can get some more groove on that maybe. Kind of just playing around with the volume levels of certain hits within there, and also using the warp markers just to kind of change the swing slightly of the hats as well. Just a really subtle thing. Let's hear it with some music in there. I want to hear it in context. No, that really doesn't go, does it? Yeah, something's not quite right there. I don't know what that is, but we'll fix that a bit later. Starting to not like those clicky things now, the 16ths. No. Let me get rid of these hi-hats that I'm not going to use. Struggling to figure out where this is going to go, actually. I tell you what, in cases like this, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start building it without a bass line. And as strange as that might sound, I don't know, it might just work. I'm going to, first of all, take all those elements from XO. I'm going to create a MIDI channel for the kick, actually, and I'm going to use the individual one shot from here, just because I like keeping my kicks separate on MIDI, and then I can always replace it a bit later. I'm going to draw in a quick intro. And in fact, on my tops, I have the Wolf compressor. Just makes things sound a little bit kind of old school. It's kind of, it emulates kind of the 303 sampler. I think it's the 303. These are my kind of standard kind of settings for it. That's just on my tops bus here. So my tops group, that's all my kind of, everything apart from the kick goes through that. I don't process my kick through this because I just want to make sure my kick is usually processed anyway. And it's usually a dirtier kind of kick. I might replace this one a bit later with a dirtier kick.
Yes, I am. Baby, yes, I am.
Yeah, something like that. That's kind of what I'm going to go for, I think. Yeah, I'm thinking of just filtering that kind of that clav in and out, kind of just to make it feel like it's teasing it almost.
To be in love. To be in love. To be in love. I'm in love. I'm in love. To be in love. I'm in love. I'm in love.
Yes, something like that. I'm feeling something like that, like coming.
To be in love. To be in love. To be in love. I'm in love. Yes, I am. To be in love. To be in love. I'm in love. To be in love. I'm in love. Yes, I am. Baby, yes, I am.
Putting the echo after the auto filter there, so when the kind of when it filters up, you get that kind of the echo coming from the auto from that unfiltered, and then when it sweeps back down again, you're not getting any of that kind of echo because I'm only echoing that kind of top area of the frequency, so you're not getting any of that bottom echo.
In love, I'm in love, to be in love, I'm in love. Yes, I am. Baby, yes, to be in love, I'm in love. Yes, I am.
Actually, I'll do that on a send channel because that'll probably be better. Just trying to just join that gap between the kind of chorus and then that ad lib. Let's put a new return track in there, get an echo in there, fully wet. Ping pong. Ping pong is just amazing. Just makes everything seem wider.
I'm in love, to be in love, I'm in love, I'm in love.
It's a bit too much. Get rid of some of that top end maybe.
To be in love, I'm in love, I'm in love, to be in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. Yes, I am.
And we can use that again on here, I reckon.
Baby, yes, I am. And with this lovely remix, we'll talk about love. Talking about love.
Yeah, that really doesn't work, that bass line. I need to severely rework that. Something about it is just not, it's not great. One thing I do tend to, when I'm struggling a little bit for kind of ideas for bass lines and stuff, and I'm struggling for that melodic idea, sometimes you can find MIDI files that kind of help. So back in the day, 20 years ago, when like mobile phones were first started coming in, MIDI files were used for polyphonic ringtones, and it was a big thing back in the day where you take a popular track, turn it into a MIDI file, and then use it on a ringtone. It's translating the notes from that track into melodic information. And for us, we can use those MIDI files to kind of to get the bass notes, the chords, everything else out of a track. It's just a bit of a shortcut. So I'm going to see if I can find, we might not be able to find it. Yeah, we're not going to find that. No, nothing there. So I'm going to use that LaLaL again and see if I can do it to get the bass out. Again, it's just one of those things I tend to, rather than spending ages, especially on this live stream, I don't want to spend ages just trying to figure out the notes, because this stuff, you know, no matter what people say, it does take time trying to figure out, you know, the right bass line and everything else like that. If you have got the ear for it and you can play, then that's brilliant. But generally I can't. So I've got to try and figure it out in a different way. How amazing is that? That was split out by LaLaL. So yeah, I mean, you couldn't use that obviously, but that's good enough to kind of give you the idea. In fact, I could probably use that to kind of sample to MIDI to get the information that I want to. I'm going to chop up that bass so I've got like a loop of it. Let's see if I can just literally just drag that across to here. This is hit and miss whether it gets it right. It always seems to miss the first note out. It's so weird. It's got some notes and not others, but it might be usable. I tell you what, this is the sad fact of being in the studio. This is kind of, you end up playing around with the bass for hours or the melody line for hours trying to get the right thing. In fact, I bet I forgot a guitar. Contact. My favorite one is Contact's Skaka RM bass. I've used this quite a bit recently. There we go. I mean, that's, I wouldn't say it was spot on, but not bad for somebody who can't play guitar.
Talking about love.
I'm going to try out for a different instrument, I think, for a sub, for a bass. Actually, massive. I might go for massive. I like that one. That's got a nice sound to it. Let me take the cut off down, I reckon. If you're just jumping in and thinking, oh, this is terrible, it is terrible. But hopefully it will get better. And this is the story with pretty much most of my tracks. They'll start off pretty ropey, and I'll go through loads of different iterations trying to figure out what I'm going to do with it. Actually, that sounds really nice. I might follow the bass note of the keys, the synth, with the bass line. I don't know if this will work, but... might separate that out, keep the bass notes separate from the keys, and I can EQ them. I want those bass notes higher, I think. I think I might have a look, see if I get a stab or something in there. I think a stab might help, because those keys are a bit too chill. Yeah, I might save those for a bit later, because they work, they're nice, but are they right for this? Is this where I want to go? I tend to use Splice quite a bit for inspiration for musical parts. So like kind of when I'm thinking, okay, I've got some kind of bass there, but I want something to kind of, I don't know, just give me an idea, something that just kind of stokes it. And I think the reason that the way I do that usually is I go into the instruments tab, look for, say, synth, either synth or keys, and then I'll search by the key of the track. And as soon as you put it, I mean, you put it in F, you get everything in F, but as soon as you put it in F minor, you usually get chords. You get chordy kind of stabs. I'm going to look for one shots and see if I can find anything here that kind of gives me any. A lot of these are kind of. Let me try looking in maybe a deep house kind of thing. I tend to use the keyboard a lot. I just hit the kind of, if you got it on the if you've literally got it loaded in your browser, you just hit the left key and you can just keep triggering it like a one-shot sample. I think there's something in that. That's quite nice. I'll just download it and save it for later. Actually, that's it. Rhodes. Maybe a nice Rhodes piano will be good in this. I love the DX7 actually. That's a really nice texture. I'm going to keep that one in there. Again, it's getting too rhythmic. It's getting too rhythmic. I'm going to get rid of it. Maybe I'll introduce, maybe that's just how I'm going to start introducing more rhythmic stuff into it. Yeah, maybe that works. Maybe I can start using it just to introduce maybe something a bit later. In fact, I'm going to use a plugin that I've not used for quite a while. I'm going to use Skaka. Skaka. I think it's called Skaka. Skaka by Clevgra. I love this. I very rarely use it. But it's a whole shaker instrument, and each one of these is a different key on your keyboard, and you hold it down and you get like a shaker pattern. But you can get some really interesting stuff out of it. It's so cool. You can switch between different like instruments here. Tambourine's quite good as well. And then just adjust it. So you got duration, so you can make it shorter or longer. The shuffle's quite nice just for making it fit with your track. They got humanize as well, which kind of makes it a bit looser, make it feel a bit more human-like. And yeah, then you've got all the different patterns here as well, which I'm going to switch between, I think. Yeah, that's a simple just shaker right in there. And it's really customizable, really works quite nicely. I think I want something else in there. It feels like it needs some more energy in there. Yeah, it's more of a heavier kind of hat in there. I'm going to get that in somewhere in the middle there, I think. Again, another one of these hats. This hat's got so much tonal energy. I'm going to put the split EQ on it. Just gives it a whole different sound. Takes that body out of it a bit. Cool. I think I've got something going there. I'm not 100% happy with it. I might come back at it at some point, but for the purpose of this live stream, I don't want to kind of just hang around on that too long. I already spent too long on it. I'm going to start playing around with the vocal and figure out what I'm going to do with the vocal, because I love this kind of intro.
To be in love. To be in love. To be in love. I'm in love. To be in love. I'm in love. Yes, I am. Baby, yes, I am. And with this lovely remix, we'll touch my love.
Oh, actually, I've forgotten about the piano we've got in here. Got this piano that I haven't used yet. What an idiot. Yeah, I reckon I could just loop up something from there. Quite like that. That's working quite nicely. I'm going to take that last note down. That's too loud. I might just, I might slam the hell out of that piano. Really compress it. Put the duck on it. Maybe distort it. I might put the RC20 on it. Not too much. I don't want like loads of distortion. I just want something a bit crunchy. It's not really kind of going along with that, really. That's one of the only things about having that shaker is just, I've got to make sure the MIDI note goes right to the start. I might use that in a breakdown actually. It's like not a mid breakdown, kind of somewhere, I don't know, maybe a couple of minutes into the track. And then drop it out there. Yeah, there we go. That works. I'm going to concentrate on the breakdown. Yeah, I'm going to get the main piano in there because I want it to drop to this really kind of euphoric kind of moment. Oh, it's all out of time. It's all out of time. No, that's not working either. What's that? I don't know what to do for that main part now. Unless I just go for the what happened in the original.
I'm in love to be in love. I'm in love. I'm in love to be in love. I'm in love. I'm in love to be in love. I'm in love. I'm in love to be in love. I'm in love. I'm in love to be in love with you is everything. To be in love. 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 I'm in love. I'm in love to be in love. I'm in love. I'm in love to be in love. I'm in love. I'm in love to be in love.
Oh, it's really hard. I'm trying to think of how we actually kind of get that in there. It needs to have like the piano. It needs to have like this kind of seminal moment where the piano just comes in. What if it's not a breakdown? What if it just kind of, it feels like it's going to go into a breakdown and then doesn't?
Every night is filled with
Oh, this is, I'll tell you what, this is the difficulty of taking a full vocal track and trying to make a W kind of mix of it, because everything leads into each other. The verses go into the chorus goes into the verse. I mean, it works as it's an amazing piece just as an original track. It makes kind of doing these kind of remixes a little bit tougher. Maybe there's not a proper like big breakdown. Maybe a big breakdown doesn't work. Maybe that's it. I mean, the vocal's a bit out of time. For some reason, it goes in and out of time. But I think that might work. So it's like it's not even a break. It's not even a breakdown. But that's good. It kind of keeps it rolling then. I'm going to move that onto a different... Do we move that onto a different track? No, I'll keep it on the same track. It'll be fine.
To be in love with you is everything. To be in love is everything. Loving you is my desire. With you.
Yeah, that's quite cool. Take out that bumpy note there. Yeah, got to make that long note last a bit longer. Oh, that's going to sound terrible, isn't it? I'm going to fade that out. Okay, yeah, I think that's working. I think that's kind of working. It's a tricky one, this one, because I was thinking there was going to be this kind of seminal moment where I could break everything out and just it be kind of chill and it kind of just be this kind of epic moment. But the original track just kind of rolls on and on and on and on and on. It doesn't really stop. It just kind of keeps rolling. So there isn't really a kind of opportunity to do that. There is in that kind of remix that I showed you like at the start where it kind of breaks away right at the end. But that's, again, that's a bit too much. I think that's it's a bit too much of a breakdown, especially for dance floors these days. You can't have a breakdown much more than 30 seconds and people start getting bored. So maybe this might work quite nicely. Just keep it rolling all the way along. And this, I mean, by the time I've got the outro and stuff on it, it'll be about 5:30. So it works as a nice little kind of edit, really. I mean, that's kind of it. That's kind of like that's the edit. I'm not saying that's finished, but like that's the rough structure. And to be honest, that's usually what I go for first of all. I want to make sure that I've kind of got a rough structure, and then then I can start working on it from there. I mean, this took a little bit longer than I suppose I thought it would, but usually I kind of start at 9:30 in the morning and go through until what, 5, 6 o'clock, obviously with lunch and stuff. So in the morning, I usually spend the time coming up with this kind of rough idea of where the edit's going to be. And more of a case, it's just kind of getting a structure, kind of figuring out how I want it to kind of sit and how I want it to play. Because I know how I want things to go in my set, like how I can get stuff in and out. And that's kind of where I want to, that's my main concern. With an edit, it's all about being that kind of DJ tool. It's going to sit perfect in your set, so you know exactly how you want it to. And I think this might work quite nicely. I get a classic high string in there. A high string should actually tie it all together. I'm going to use the M1 from Korg, of course. Favorite patch on this one I use probably the most. Strings, Dyna strings, and then just a held note in the key of your track. That kind of just works. High string is one of those things that I really kind of put it deep within the mix. I'm going to fade that string in as well. Fade that string in a bit.
When I'm feeling down, you come to my rescue. That's why I'm falling deeper, 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 deeper in love.
I think that shaker's still a little bit too long, actually. I'm going to make that shorter. I can't actually make it any shorter in here. I mean, I've got it down to the shortest duration, which, to be honest, in this should be like, it should be like nothing. You should be able to do it down to nothing, but you can't. So I'm going to put a transient shaper on it over the top of it. It's funny, I never used to use transient shapers all that much, but recently I've just, must be going through a phase of it. I think what I might do as well is I'm going to go through one of my favorite bits is once I've kind of got all this kind of element, all the elements that I want. They're not quite EQ'd and sitting just right yet, but I want to find some extra bits, and I like finding extra bits from Splice. Splice is a treasure trove for the things like this. Again, I tend to go into the effects category. Put in the key that you're working in, so working in F minor in this one. And then I just kind of look through, I kind of play stuff along with it. And across all genres, like looking in all genres for effects and stuff. And you get some really interesting stuff you wouldn't necessarily use, but because it sounds good whilst you're playing along with the track, it just kind of, it works sometimes. See, that one's 133 BPM for techno. But that just kind of works. In fact, I've actually, by the looks of it, I've used it in something else before. But by the time I got it like deep in the mix, you're not even going to notice it so much. And I tend to use things like that for transitions going between like the break and like, I don't know, the drop. And this is what I do. I kind of put a whole smattering of different like effects and layers and tiny little bits really kind of deep within the mix. I'm taking this minus 30 dB. This might work quite nice.
To my rescue. That's why I'm falling deeper, 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 deeper in love. In love.
Yeah, see that? That just works really nicely there, just to introduce that kind of drop. I think it's getting to a stage where I'm happy with it now, and I think it's just going to be a case of lots of little tweaks. And that's generally kind of going through and EQing every single little bit, making sure everything fits nicely, getting everything fitting nicely within the mix, adding loads more effects. The effects are something that definitely kind of tie everything together, especially like crashes and things like that. That vocal definitely needs tightening. Like it, as you can probably hear, it's kind of going in and out of sync a little bit. But I think it's just generally probably the acapella. I think the acapella is from a vinyl, so it might just be slightly drifting. That's kind of the basics of an edit, and that's kind of how I start. Yeah, pretty much most of my edits. It's taken, well, I started at 12. It's now 4:15, so 4 hours. As I say, I would usually spend the first few hours of the morning, maybe 3-4 hours of the morning, coming up with something rough like this. And then I would break for lunch, go away, clear my ears, and then come back and then finish it off. That's usually what I do. Probably it'd only be like another couple of hours worth of finishing it off. It's just all those tweaks that you can't hear until you've been away from the screen for a little while. So that's kind of doing an edit with me. Ultimately, I thought this was going to fail, to be honest. Like when I had an idea in my head as where I thought this edit might go. But obviously being on a live stream, you know, you can never kind of guarantee how something is going to go. And there were some rough parts where I was trying to get that right kind of bass line right. But as soon as you kind of something clicks, then, you know, you can kind of flow from there. I think that's how the bass line kind of works. So yeah, so I think that's about it. I think that's kind of it for the day. Hopefully it's been interesting. If you want to see more of these live streams, just let me know in the comments below. Maybe in another couple of weeks, maybe I'll do another live, and let me know what you want to see. So yeah, hopefully it's been useful, and I will see you all again very soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Right now, gonna bring it back to the funk.